Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology, the AstroInklings program for September. I'm sitting here this morning with my friend Tam from the Energy Almanac and Choose Big Change. Hello, Tam.
Hi, Janet. Hey, everyone.
Guess what I did this morning?
Tell me.
I left my coffee across the room. I see it.
Oh,
I see it, but I can't get it. And so I don't have my coffee to say, grab your cup of coffee. But hey, grab your cup of coffee. I guess I could grab my water and have that. So here we are today talking about what's coming up for September. I just can't hardly believe we're 9 months into the calendar year. Can you?
I step outside and things are getting brown and gold already. It's early.
Mm.
We've been really dry here on the East Coast, and it's kind of mind-boggling to think we're getting ready to enter autumn. It's blows my mind.
Yep. We're same here. We're getting a lot of leaves that they've been turning since about early August
Wow.
because it's dry, because we're in drought most of the
Yes,
summer.
us too. Yeah.
So part of it's drying, the other part of it is it's getting colder and darker and yeah. So anyway, kind of feels good to do that. And September ushers in a very momentous time for us with the Energy Almanac. Do you want to tell people what's coming up here?
I absolutely do. I want to show something off, Janet.
Woohoo! Look at that. That
This is
lift it up just a little bit because we can't see the owls. There we go.
Oh,
Right
there's
there.
Janet and I. This is Janet and I. Woohoo!
The team, the moon team.
This is the new Energy Almanac for 2026 and 2027. And oh my gosh, September 1 through 11, here comes the pre-sale where people can order their beautiful coil-bound book. I'm so proud of this. It's gorgeous, Janet. You did good,
Yeah.
friend.
We did good. We did good. It was a lot of work. More because I was my first year really having to be involved from all aspects of it.
Finish, yeah.
And and yet it feels like, we really did a great job. So
You did.
I'm pleased with the way it's turned out and I'm excited. So again, September 1st through the 11th, you'll be seeing a lot of stuff coming across from me and from Tam perhaps
Absolutely.
about the Energy Almanac pre-sale. This is your opportunity to get your coil bound books. We only order a certain number,
That's right.
and when they're gone, they're gone. And then you can still get one. You can get it, but it won't be a coil bound. And the
Right.
coil bound is good because why, Tam?
Because you can write it, you can lay flat. Watch. Woo!
Woo!
It
And you
opens.
could turn it inside out and all of that. I mean, so for me, as a writer in it, it's the only way to go, right? It's the only way to go.
I
So
love
that's happening again, September 1 through 11. Now, September. Here, I'm going to show our calendar for September so
Oh boy,
everybody can get an idea of the monumental month that we have ahead of us. Look at that.
it's a lot.
I see what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, 6 days, maybe 7, 8, 9 days total that have nothing. And even that's kind of misleading because some of those days are being embraced by the lunar or solar eclipse that is occurring this month as well. So there is a lot going on for September, but we're going to take our top, maybe 5 or 6 things because there's no way we can handle them all. Just can't.
We can't.
Uh,
And we were having a fun conversation in the green room about, for me, what a struggle it was to write the Energy Almanac for 2025, September 2025. I saw all of these yods and eclipses and the Grand Trine, and it was so much to try to decode. There's really a lot packed into this month. So I'm very excited to kind of bring it all together in this Astro Inklings podcast today, Janet. Let's get into
yeah,
it.
yeah,
There's
we jump right in, don't we? In this month, we don't get a break. It's not like a week that goes by before we before we jump into the hot end of the pool. We start with Saturn moving backward. He has been already in retrograde, but moving backward into Pisces, kind of giving us a if you will, of that 2.5 year transit that he spent in the sign of Pisces, where boundaries were coming undone.
mm,
And we all know Saturn loves boundaries. So you put him in Pisces, and it's not always this happy experience for him. So Pisces now, with Saturn backward in Pisces, he'll be asking us to re-engage with any unfinished business that we had around boundaries and faith and compassion and sort of the sacred spark, right, of Aries that we got from these last few months with him in Aries, pauses, right? That forward momentum pauses, and then we are asked to, remember that we're spiritual beings, to remember that imagination is only as good as it can be unless you take steps to create it, right? The imagination needs to be made, real.
Mm.
Um, and, Saturn is about the new structures that need to be built in order to support the new vision, whatever that may be for you. What about you?
I think you covered it all.
Yeah.
It's just important that we make sure we do take a few minutes to reflect on those important topics. Particularly, I think, the word boundaries as it relates to
Yeah.
Piscean energy. Like, where where do you have no boundaries, and uh,
Mhm.
and where are you holding on too tightly? I mean,
Yeah.
it's really
Too
both sides,
rigid.
I think.
Yeah, it is. It's both sides because, if you have rigid boundaries, then that there's no wiggle room to grow or evolve or move forward.
Right.
So some of you may be dealing with, the boundary issues that are, too tight, and others might need to rein it in and make boundaries to
Exactly.
in order to have the structure, the form to create what it is that, is going on from your imagination. So
Mhm.
it's an important thing, and he will be there a couple of months. He doesn't go back into Aries until February, I want to say February 20th, I believe it is. So we have a couple of months to, kind of look back at what is happening. But the important thing to understand is he goes back to the 29th degree, which
Right.
is always that critical, or anaretic is another word that we use, karmic degree. So at least initially, as he moves backward, it is really in our faces where it is that those boundaries need to be reworked, both personally, but also in the outer world, right? We'll see all of that happening. Next day, Mercury moves
Woo!
into Virgo. Woo!
Sweet home, right?
Home sweet home. He actually is the ruler of the sign of Virgo. However, it's funny because he also rules Gemini, but he squares Gemini from that point, and that means Uranus. There's the square to Uranus that happens the very next day. And I don't know if I've ever talked to you guys about this, but Mercury and Uranus are like the higher and lower octave of one another, right?
Mhm.
Mercury rules the mind and everything that, the thinking capacity. Uranus rules the higher mind and the inspiration that can come in as breakthroughs or awakenings or revelation from our higher self that moves and mediates down into Mercury in the mind. So we have a very active mind right after Saturn moves into Pisces.
Ooh.
Yeah. But I think it does kind of afford us some inspiration, right? That access to inspiration, if we're open minded, right? If we close down our minds, then there's a problem. Then it becomes anxiety or it becomes nervousness. But I think when we stay open minded, about the potential for us to be expressing ourselves from the highest point of view, then things aren't so chaotic or feel so nervous or anxious.
I'm look
So,
You're talking about September 3rd, yeah? Mercury
yes,
square
was
Uranus. So,
second and third.
yeah, second and third. So I'm looking at this and thinking about information coming in, maybe sudden information, surprise, revelatory, new information coming in, and that urge to communicate it tense against the analytical mind going, but what do I do with this information? It's like this
Mm,
day, I see it as this day of tension, that like, what do I do? Should I, shouldn't I? And trying to work through the steps in your mind of what to do with it.
yeah. There is a real tendency during this time for overthinking and
Yes.
overwhelming mental anxiety, mental exhaustion.
Oh,
So it will be a really good thing to get out of your head and into your actual,
yeah.
body, lower body, take a walk out in nature, um, go into your garden and start, gosh, our garden is just like producing get some veggies out of your garden, get into the earth so that you can ground some of that energy so it's just not all running rampant through your mind. So then the next day, Thursday the 4th, there was something else about September 3rd. I have a feeling that's the day that we have an exact minor grand trine that's forming between Neptune, Pluto, and uh,
Yes.
Uranus. And yet we've been talking about this for a while because, it's been within a degree of each other for, gosh, when did we start talking about this? End of July, maybe? And this just happens to be the day that they're all exact, I believe.
We have it
So,
in the almanac as a yod on the 2nd. So 2nd, 3rd again. Mercury, Pluto, Neptune, and Saturn.
let's take a look here. Say that again. Neptune,
Mercury,
Uranus.
Pluto, Neptune, and Saturn.
Yeah.
Mercury. Yep.
Mercury in Virgo.
Yep.
Yeah. That is true. That is a yod. And that makes that even a little bit more pressured for us to get out of the thinking and down into the body. Because now, it's a health concern, right?
Right.
It's something to do with your well-being. And you don't want to mess around with that kind of thing. I am actually going to, no, I'm not yet. Let's not do that yet. So on the 4th, Mars in Libra squares Jupiter in Cancer. And that is another day that I think is a pretty banner day, as well as it being a new human design week that begins there. And I didn't bring up a human design chart, but both of the gates for that new week are in the head center. One gate, the 64, where the sun is, called divine transference. And in quantum human design, it's divine transference. But in traditional human design, it was called confusion.
That
And
fits
then,
right in with the 2nd and 3rd.
yes. And then the earth is in the gate 63, also in the head center. So they anchor, one side of the head center each. And the gate 63 in the traditional human design was called doubt.
Mm,
And in quantum human design, we call it curiosity, right? Where we are asking questions like, what more is possible? Like, is there another way that we can make this work, or things like that, rather than falling into doubt and despair over those types of things. So the new Human Design Week is even showing us that there's a lot of mind entry that we are dealing with.
yeah.
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 But then Mars and Libra and squaring Jupiter in Cancer is this desire for justice and fairness, right? And it meets this urge for emotional security. So we've got this tension between the two. This is a square, and tensions arise in our relationships, perhaps. Maybe
Mm,
we are overthinking because we have all this other mind stuff about something someone said, maybe something someone didn't say, but should have said. And, we're driving ourselves crazy. So watch for tensions, especially, around home and family. Expansion is possible, but only if we are allowed to balance, if we keep those scales in some kind of harmony. But this also is one of those aspects that plays out in the wider world and is sometimes an amplification of Mars, what could be perceived as Mars abuses of the justice system, and or the glaring difficulties that we face in how the justice system is working in the outer world, at least here in the US, but I would imagine it's happening all over the world that way.
Well, that's interesting. Now, couldn't that also play out as actions taken in the legal system that bring peace? Like, there's a lot of peace talks going on across the planet right now.
Hmm.
But of course, the Jupiter energies are, the square itself is going to create tension, and maybe the peace talks don't go as planned.
Or maybe they turn out better than planned. I mean,
Oh,
the idea behind a square is it's the tension that's built up for you to have to do something with it.
right. Okay.
And it doesn't mean, just because of the nature of the square that it's all negative. It could be
Right.
very positive. But think about Jupiter and its potential to amplify either the negative or the positive. It just depends on how our perspective is and how the parties involved in those negotiations actually approach this, right?
I'm going for really good peace talks because peace on earth and goodwill to men, right?
Correct. If we're so ready. I'm so tired of
So
listening
ready.
to,
So ready.
yeah, so ready. And what makes this first week of September, even a little more difficult to predict is Uranus's change from forward motion to retrograde motion.
Right.
Now, this planet is called the contrarian planet. So sometimes those reversals, the time when he changes from forward to retrograde or retrograde back to forward motion, are big trials in the world, in our own lives even, because it's like, nope, I don't want that one. I'm not doing it that way now, right? And what do you do? Right? What do you do about it? But it also gives us an opportunity because he's turning into the contrarian, right? The retrograde contrarian Uranus, to really get a look at, well, where might our stuck points be, right? Because I think sometimes contrary is a way for us to see ourselves in a different way or to see a situation in a different way. I was talking last week to my listeners about, something that in manifesting blueprint that we each have, that some people, learn by contrast, right? They have to be able to see what they don't want first in order to see what they do want.
Yeah.
So we may see a lot of contrast, a lot of contrariness going on this first week of September, and it's not a bad thing. I
Right.
mean, it might feel like it in the moment when we can't agree on something, but literally it is the driver for innovation and for new ideas that come as breakthroughs.
Mm.
So it's a cool moment, but it just is going to feel really weird because we're also going to what? A lunar eclipse.
Ah!
That's,
Ah!
I mean, the first week of September, no lie, is one for the history books, really, because there's so much going on. I mean, there's so many layers of things that are going on. And for everybody, at this point, I'd say look at the Virgo and Pisces parts of your chart, and then look at the Gemini, Aries parts of your chart, because those like seem to be the quadrants that are flashing beacons at you. Like, fix me, do something with me.
Oh no, only till these eclipses happen in the Virgo Pisces axis. Then it's wow, a whole different area of your life that's lighting up.
Well, that's what I said. Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, and Aries. These are like the four
Oh, I see.
areas.
You did say quadrant. I missed part of what you said because I was reading a
Yeah.
comment. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this potential for lots of different things to be lit up. But guess what? It's not just this week, right?
No.
You've probably, or that first week of September, you've likely already been feeling something coming, something, is up in your world somewhere, because the eclipses, we start to feel them even sometimes as far as 3 months before. Me, I think I usually start to notice it about a month to 3 weeks before the eclipse.
Me too.
Then we have the eclipse window, the day of, and then another 6 months after that eclipse, because the eclipse is activated until the next eclipse, which won't be until next March.
Right.
So big
We
things.
um I just want to remind everybody that Janet and I did God, I think it was an hour and 15-minute webinar on the topic of these two eclipses. And oh my gosh, I really let Janet take the lead on that. It was so layered. I felt like these two eclipses had so much going on. I think there were kites and yods both within the eclipses. And we went super, super deep. Janet, can you remind us more about
Yes.
that?
Yeah, so the first eclipse that's up on tap is the September 7th full moon lunar eclipse. Now, this is a blood moon. However, it's not visible for us here in the USA. It's only visible like from the Atlantic through Europe and Africa, and I guess Alaska gets a little piece of it. But for the bulk of us, we're not going to see it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have any power over you or any power, punch in your life. And it is a dramatic moon. Besides the fact it's a blood moon, it is filled with these different configurations, the kite configuration, a grand water trine that is a part of the configuration, where we have yods involved in this configuration. And the kite, as we've been talking about almost all summer, because we've had it off and on, well, from August 1st through the 15th, it was like in our faces, that the kite splits the potential of the grand trine and makes it harder for us to establish that flow. It's like we go up one wing, we hit a block, and then, we have to solve that problem so that we can go down the other side only to hit another block. So these things have been, like steep learning curves for us. And this eclipse is not an exception to that. The opposition in the kite is between Virgo and Pisces. And that axis can bring us into victim martyr kind of behaviors and thinking, which is a sign for us to surrender all of that old paradigm. The flow of inspiration is what we're meant to follow. And irregardless of, the fear that brings to us, right? We have to trust our inner creative guidance. That's what this full moon lunar eclipse is ultimately leading us to.
I think that you said something really big right there. The whole martyrdom, victimhood
Yeah.
axis or play out of these particular zodiac signs really will play out across the world as tensions rise, right?
Yep.
Politically, and as they are really, really up here right now. One side is going to feel the victim, and one side is going to feel the martyr. And I think that energy is going to be so present. And so for those of us, again, we said this on the webinar, those of us who are here and awake enough, we get to hold the light and be the light and do as Janet was just speaking about, is like, seek inspiration, seek neutrality when you're dealing with what may arise,
Mm-hmm.
and don't fall into the victimhood and the martyrdom. There's enough of it already on the planet. Let's just.
Yeah, exactly. So here's a picture of what that full moon lunar eclipse looks like. Totally forgot that I had you send that to me. Thank you so much. So you see outlined in blue, I've highlighted the kite. So you see that the kite points, the top, the apex points at the sun, Mercury, and the south node. So now we get a glimpse of something that we have to release, right? The south node's involved. The sun is shining something very bright, and Mercury, and it's almost conjunction with the sun here, bringing a message that is something for you to look at, that you need to release, that isn't working for you personally, but also what's not working for us collectively. The other side, down at the bottom, can you see my cursor? Or did we decide we can't see my cursor? Okay. So down here in Pisces at the bottom now of the chart is where the moon and the north node are. This is the direction. This is where we have to default to. The moon, our emotions, the north node, our destiny. Our destiny lies in Pisces, one of imagination and creativity and visionary passion, intuition, our divinity.
Divinity, yes.
Our divine nature. And in Pisces, it's about compassion and empathy and tolerance and acceptance and a whole host of universal love and unconditional love, oneness, a bunch of qualities that are very spiritual. It's a very spiritual setup. And our wings, each side, one is Jupiter in Cancer on the right side of the chart, and the other wing is the Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. And okay, the Black Moon Lilith is interesting in all of this because in Scorpio, she's about, kind of letting go of that whole win-lose kind of mentality and attempting the win-win, right? Win-win. So in our scenario of peace talks, for example, instead of perceiving, if I win, you lose, how could we both win? How is it a win-win? And focusing on that as opposed to the lose part of that. So all in all, it is a pretty powerful moon. You can see the yod between the Sun, Mercury, and South Node, and Ceres, the goddess, the mother goddess of abundance and the nurturer of the earth. So some difficulties then with how we treat the planet, how we treat ourselves as part of the planet, and another yod between Venus and the moon, and the North Node. She's in Leo, Venus is, so self-expression, butting up against creativity and imagination, but in a way that's very positive, I think. That yod is a difficult one because it's yod, but it is an easier one because the planets involved elevate our imagination powers. So, boom.
Janet, take just a second, if you will. Karen says here, 17-degree Virgo moon. Sun is 2 degrees off my moon south node, 1 degree. I think this woman is in for a big shift.
Yeah, look at the house that's in for you, Karen, because that is where the biggest call for change is going to come through. But then look across the other side at Virgo and what house is that in? If this were a chart of a person, Tam, this would be across the 10th and the 4th house.
Right.
So if that were a person, I'd be saying things like, well, you maybe need to have a better work home life balance and find ways, creative ways perhaps, to be able to be in both places to make sure you're fulfilling the foundation of your life, your family, the loves of your life, and also the work part and your authority and who you are in the outer world as a servant of your sharing your gifts and your talents. So look at the houses, because that tells you where in your life this is all happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right. Anything else about this moon before we move on? Because Lord help me, we've got 3 more weeks.
All I would say is go grab our webinar, which will be available
Yeah.
with a beautiful PDF with tons of coaching questions, journaling questions. This is the month that you need all the tools. So
This is the month you need all the tools. And I will have that up on my website hopefully later today. It was $22, right? You get access to rituals and routines and things that can help you, maintain well-being. You get the chart, of course, and all of that, but the video and the slides that we used separately within that. So check out my website, living-astrology.com, but don't do that until later today because I'll finish that up later. Let's go into week 2, shall we? Like that was just 1 week. All of that was just the first week.
Oh my God. Just put your calendar back up if you would.
Let's put the calendar back up. There we go. So now week 2, we have a couple of days of respite. Oops, wrong chart. Wrong thing.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Let's remove.
Yeah, we're looking at September 10th when the next human design shift happens. New week.
Yeah, so we don't have a shift until the 10th. That human design week is fascinating to me because it's another mind-oriented one. It is about the gate 47 is where the sun is. It is a gate we call stinking thinking sometimes.
Yeah.
But here's the cool thing. So the first week of September's sun in the gate 64, divine transference, which can create confusion for us, finds the epiphany the second week in the gate 47. So while 47 is sometimes called stinking thinking, or it is the gate of the mindset, it is also about the epiphany that comes out of the confusion when you stay out of your own way, when you don't try to force something into the knowing there. And then the earth grounding us in grace. That is such a beautiful, like, exclamation point period at the end of the eclipse. I find that, next 5 days, 6 days being, very soothing, right, for us. Unless, of course, you didn't do what we said and you got into your head and didn't do the things to ground yourself in the physical world.
Well, it's not the easiest month to stay out of your head with Mercury and Virgo anyway. Just saying.
Very, very true, especially if you're a Virgo, if you're a Gemini, if you're a Libra, and if you're an Aquarian, which are all kind of those mind-centric signs. So you have to work a little harder. All right. After that, the 10th, we get to the 12th, and I put the term busy moon because busy moon. That day is busy. Busy, busy. The moon is lighting up the entire spectrum of energies from the trine to the sun, a sextile to Jupiter, a square to Venus, a sextile to Saturn, a sextile to Neptune, a conjunction to Uranus, and a trine to Pluto.
Wow. Yeah,
That's a
that's
lot
that
for one day.
day.
One day.
Yeah.
Right? And if you think of the emotions involved, right? The moon, highlighting emotions. I feel like that day might be an emotional roller coaster for us, even though it's lit up in green in my calendar. So there's a lot of emotional juice available on the 12th, but it is also the day that the sun and Mercury come into a sextile to Jupiter. So
Mm,
remember all of those maybe revelations and ideas and imaginings and things mind stuff that the first week might have been bringing. Well, the sextile to Jupiter from the sun and Mercury, which are in a conjunction for all intents and purposes that day, really starts to feed the potential for that to get expressed. So the
mm.
second week of September, I think, is the maybe the best week of the month
Yeah,
in terms of being able to get somewhere and do something.
yeah.
What do you think?
I kind of marked the 12th as sort of highly emotional, but with potential for like cosmic cheerleading. I feel like the
Yeah,
you know?
perfect.
Okay.
Cosmic cheerleading, I love it.
Yeah.
Um, and that being said, emotions can be volatile. So we, might
Yes.
see ourselves up and down. When I look at all of the connections, though, they're sextiles and trines and a
Right.
conjunction. So they're positive type of aspects that the moon makes. So it could be a very good day. And then that day is followed by the exact conjunction of the sun and the moon. This is called the superior conjunction of Mercury and the sun, which means that they are conjuncting on the far side, on the other side of the sun from the earth. So rather than the inferior conjunction, what happens when they are when Mercury's in retrograde, it goes sun, Mercury, earth. Now it's different because it's Mercury, sun, earth, right? So they're kind of reversed, but it also points us to the halfway point in the cycle of Mercury and the sun. So we expect then, another retrograde coming, which we know is in Libra in end of October. Maybe it's
End of
Scorpio.
October. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, end
I
of
want
October.
to take a minute to talk about so on the 13th, Mercury conjunct the Sun in Virgo. We're in between these two eclipses. We're in a serious time where your mind is highly active, right? Mercury in Virgo and the Sun in Virgo. And I feel like we talk about it being a mind body axis, maybe time period. I would say to everybody, keep it at the forefront that I'm probably in my head a lot in September. What can I do to ground myself? What can I do to not be stuck in my thought processes and instead do something else? Like as a Virgo and like in my head a lot, I know that of myself. I have to either be busy with my hands, I have to plan something like on a day like that, on a Saturday, especially, I might actually plan to be outside in the garden pulling plants out that are gone by so that I don't get locked into what just happened, what is going on. Finding
Yes.
I really can get into a loop. And for those of you who loop like my thoughts do, like it's tiresome, it's exhausting. Like I'm going to be really cognizant in my head that this is not the day to be in my head, right?
This is not the day to be in your head, to be in your body. Virgo's a very embodiment kind of sign. It's the sign of well-being and our routines and our habits, the things that we do. And sometimes thinking is a habit,
Yep.
right? We get into when we're, constantly obsessing or, compulsively thinking over and over about things that have bothered us or that we're trying to find a solution for. Sometimes the best medicine for that is to get out of your head into the garden, into the mountains, into the water,
Yep.
break that thinking pattern, and then suddenly the aha happens. And remember, this is the aha week.
Right.
The whoa, there it is, right? Um, I also want you to note that that same day, the 13th, the moon will be in Gemini all day,
Oh,
another thinking sign. So you're absolutely right. Plan on doing something that, so either plan that day because you need your thinking power for creation of something.
Mm.
Or if you're an overthinker like Tam and I tend to be, get out of the thinking mode and into something else, right? Either use the thinking for the positive, or if you know you're going to be obsessive compulsive about what you're thinking, go do something else. That's the 13th. That's the second Saturday of the month. All right. So week 2, not so bad. Week 2, a pretty good week. Now we go into week 3. So, we have the first week, which was whoosh, second week, which is third week is another whoosh.
Yeah,
as we
it really
as
is.
as we have this, bunch of energies that start out right there on Sunday, a new human design week. Now, here's where I think the month might turn a little dramatic, because that particular week begins the human design week with the sun is at the gate 6, which is a highly emotionally volatile, sometimes impactful energy. The 6 is a red flag gate. When we see it defined in human design, we take extra care because the emotions can run very high here about caring for tribe. And then the earth is in the gate 36, a gate that in traditional human design was called crisis. And sometimes we think of the 36 as an exploration gate where there's a lot of experiences that are happening and can, really cause us to be stressed over the emotional impact of whatever's happening out there in the world. But we also have Venus sextile Mars that day. I love that, right? Creativity is really high when those two planets come together. So I'm feeling like it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag day.
A mixed bag day is a good way to say it, with the human design aspects playing the way they are.
Yeah. But later in the week, we get into Mercury opposing Saturn. Now, you know, when I see Mercury opposing Saturn, I always think about how is it that we can train our minds on something, a problem. Let's say we need to find a solution to something, and we can use that Saturn ability to pull in the perspective and Mercury's ability to, be in the thinking train, if you will, and aim toward a solution. So it could be a good day. Maybe we hear about solutions to some of the peace processes that are going on. I don't know for sure, but in your own life, perhaps it's a very solutions oriented day, a
Yeah.
problem perhaps that you've been struggling with. But you have to be able to train the mind to go toward the solution, right? Rather than just focusing on the problem end, what is possible, right? How could this be solved?
I
So,
I like that, and I think so too, Janet. Like, the tension between Mercury and Saturn could definitely create a solution, because Saturn is in Pisces, which really can think outside, right,
yes.
of the box, and then Mercury's in that analytical Virgo. So I think the potentials are okay for that day.
I think so too, but it can also make our minds turn more serious, right?
Sure.
So the news cycle may seem more serious, or there are more serious things happening, but not to be worried about that so much, but maybe tapping into the ability to think, maybe coloring outside the lines even a little bit. Saturn doesn't necessarily like that, but he's in Pisces. Come on, think outside the box, Saturn. That's followed on the 18th by the planet Jupiter making a move in human design to a gate called preparation, the gate 62. It is a gate of the details of something, and it has a distinctly Cancerian flavor with a Virgoan twist, if you will, right? Because it gets into like all of the details. So people that have the gate 62 defined are often really good bookkeepers or, strategists, because this energy helps us to prepare things for the future, to see all the details. Like, how we've just been going through this whole editing process of the energy almanac, and every time we looked at it again, there was something more we saw because we were looking for specific things.
Yeah.
And that's this gate. Jupiter, the growth orientation for us now for the next month at that point, takes us into looking for the details. What is it that we might have missed? And, but yet not forgetting to see the forest, right? That there's the bigger picture as well as the little picture. But sometimes we think too much about the big picture and we forget that there's all these things that lead us up to completing the job or the project that, would need the details. And then Mercury moves into Libra that day at the same time. Mercury moving fast. He's at a fast clip now, because if you'll notice, that's, within 2 weeks, he's moved through the sign of Virgo and he's entering Libra. And if there is an opportunity for great diplomatic issues to be solved,
There
it's
you
going
go.
to be then,
Yep.
right? It's going to be then.
Good
So
call.
I look forward to that. And also Mercury opposing Neptune as he moves into Libra, right? Neptune's still in the sign of Aries. He hasn't retrograded back to Pisces yet, but he will. And just not this month. So we have some creative solutions, perhaps.
Well, and I'm kind of thinking more in mundane astrology. Help me with this. Aries being leaders, world leaders, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And Neptune and Mercury in Libra, diplomacy, communicating diplomacy. Can we have a little bit of hope, maybe?
Maybe. But oppositions, remember, are pulling us in two different directions.
Right.
So maybe on one side we have the vision, but Mercury not quite getting the communication into that vision. So, but I still think in Libra we have the potential for breakthroughs
Right.
in that
Right. That's how I
respect.
feel about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Either that or bigger, wider arguments. And I think we've already seen the big arguments. So it's possibly time to, put those away and struggle towards solutions, right? Let's find the solution.
Yeah.
And of course, this is leading us to that the same week we're going to have the new moon solar eclipse.
Mm.
So the idea is we're coming into the darkest part of the moon cycle. So it's in the dark sometimes that we find the jewel, right? The treasure. So it's possible something that was unexpected can happen that leads to a solution. So we can hold this in our hearts. And especially because the very next day after that, Venus moves into Virgo. So now the lovely goddess of beauty and harmony and peace, she moves into Virgo. That says, okay, well, let's get down to it, right? Let's get the treaty written up. Let's get the agreement down. Let's ink the
Spring order.
solution. Let's bring order to all of this chaos. Let's just end this endless, seemingly stream of fighting. And it's on many different fronts, right? And there is a kind of astrology, and I should have looked at this, where we could see like what part of the world is being influenced by Venus at that point in time. What part of the world is Virgo, and at this moment, I know the west coast of the U.S. is Sagittarian, so I'd have to go back. It might actually be Russia,
Wow.
a chunk of Russia that has the Virgo line. So maybe we see something on the Russian-Ukrainian front.
That would be interesting.
Possible. I don't know, but that is just one front. The Middle East is another one that is perhaps part of that. Well, I'll take that up and bring it to my morning show one day here and see if we can't
And look
figure
at
this out.
on the 19th, Mercury trine Uranus and Pluto, and seems to me that day, the 19th, might be the beginning of um, like some almost like harmony breakthroughs. Where here we are trying to create this big change. Uranus in Gemini, right? It's retrograde. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, oh, I just see that could spark something really interesting on the bigger plane, you know?
Yes, because what happens here is now that minor grand trine configuration that is with us until 2028 is triggered, right?
Yeah.
Every time a planet moves into some kind of configuration, and they're all going to do it, right? They're all going to somehow figure into this minor grand trine, which is a signature of the times we're in, about innovation for the future, a future orientation, looking at how is it that we set up society, our collective, if you will, as we move forward. So there's something really positive in that minor grand trine, even though the world looks really kind of chaotic in this process that we're in right now, because we're still in the breakdown part of this. But the potential for this new flow to be established is so high, right? So high. And one of the other things I have not mentioned yet here is that by that date, by the time we get to September 9th, we have Pluto moving into the
Oh, right.
extreme expression,
That's
its
right.
its southernmost declination, for the last time in history, and for 10 years, the theme is going to be reform.
Yeah.
So it's big, big.
We covered that in detail in the eclipse webinar. I remember that.
Yeah,
Yes.
we did. We covered that in detail because that is such a big part of everything that is happening from here on out.
I believe the
So
language was that September, because of the Pluto out of bounds, foretells sort of the next 10 years.
absolutely. Next 10 years of transformation, transformational reform. We could put that out there like that
Yep.
because it is about, we've had a lot of breakdown, and that's always the prelude to evolution, right? The breakdown so that we can move forward. So it's a big deal. And then the trine, of course, making it easier for us to maybe communicate some of the parts of that new future that need to be built. Then we go into the day before the eclipse on the 20th, Venus squaring Uranus. That is always going to be sort of a relationship, values, money kind of thing.
Mhm.
Uranus might inject because Uranus is retrograde. We may be going backwards somewhat. And I'm of two minds of this, just like my typical Gemini self here. One, we go backward to a healthier economy, or we go backward to inflation. It's hard to predict here with this, but I would expect some volatility in the markets. Um, who knows what the cause of that volatility is? Maybe just Pluto in its extreme declination. Who knows? But expect maybe some of the unexpected and in your relationships as well, because that's the personal expression here is the potential for new relationships or for the breakdown or break up of current relationships. So things happening there that lead us to the new moon solar eclipse. Now I'm going to change my screen here.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. Or here we grow again, maybe, huh?
Oh, yes, here we grow again. Absolutely.
Okay, here is at the new
Look at
moon.
everyone. Just look. Look at that chart. Oh my God.
It is
Ah,
an interesting chart to say
oh,
the least. And I always try to make these, I'm highlighting highlighters, where I really want you to focus. And I want you to see that there is a pink yod and an orange yod. They're interlocking yods. And, you know, in the webinar, Tam and I really broke this down because the yods are their configuration, their geometry is such that at the base you have two planets that talk together, right? They're neighbors, they get along, they're harmonized, but they both point in a direction where there's disharmony that we need to bring into harmony or that we need to bring into a solution, right? So there's this tension in a yod that causes us, almost forces us like through the eye of a needle. And one of those eyes of the needle is Venus. The other eye of the needle is Mars. We couldn't make this up if we tried, right? Because right there is this balancing or harmonizing or the need to do something about the equalization of the big energies of the masculine and the feminine. How do we bring those into balance? That's the key to this particular eclipse. But the bases tell the story, right? The base of the Martian yod is Uranus and Neptune, and these two are in a long-term sextile with one another that brings us potential, manifestation of visions, right? Neptune and Uranus work well together in a sextile. The other one is a little more tricky, right? Because Pluto and Neptune are also in a long-term sextile. And long-term as in it's been since maybe the 80s and 90s when these two started coming back into this sextile. And they're pointed at Venus. And here's major transformative energy pointing us in the direction of the divine feminine in the sign of Virgo, the goddess, which is literally the divine feminine rising. That is how I always think of Virgo. She is powerful. She needs no one else to, make her feel good about herself. She just is herself. So the divine feminine rising, and in a way, the divine masculine not declining, that's not quite the word, but it's the only one I can think of, but moving back to his proper place, right? Because he's overrun, the divine masculine energy has overrun both energies. And coming back to its rightful place, there we go, means that then the two energies can balance. And we're not talking genders here, we're talking big, energies. The masculine energy of protection, of defense, of production, of providing, right? The divine feminine energy of creating the values and the way that we're going to teach our young, and the values that we transmit to our young, the way that we align to those values, right? That's the divine feminine and the divine masculine in their rightful places. So we are course correcting in this eclipse.
A major course correction coming to a neighborhood near you on September 21st. Find Virgo in your chart. Find out which house that is for you. It's a new moon, so a new beginning. What a fabulous way to have a new beginning when the masculine and feminine come into balance.
Yeah. But I also, sorry. I also wanted to point out, look at the highlighted pink planets, Mars at 29 degrees Libra, the new moon and the sun at 29 degrees Virgo, right? If we look at Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries. So we have those degrees, 0 and 29 are critical degrees. They're karmic.
Yeah.
So almost like feels, Tam, I just got this feeling of a linchpin that, turns, the turning point. Interesting. Turning the pivot point of the energies of the times that we're living in. So could be a very interesting new moon.
I'm not going to say could be. It will be. It will be extremely like one for the books kind of new moon. And I almost feel sad for the people who don't really fully understand what's upon us in September as a turning point. And September being the 9th month in the calendar year anyway, not the astrological year, but the calendar year, like 9 being like some kind of closure. I can't.
But it also being a 7, because in the old world calendar, it's the 7th month, and the 7th month being a spiritual
year. So those numerically, I think that this is just such a interesting and beautiful time. And with those 29 and 0 degree points, like, wow, I've been saying this for weeks. Hold on to your panties.
Don't get your panties in a bunch, but hold on. They might be trying to be ripped away. And it's this energy now of culmination too, right? That the 29th degrees, they're culminating points. So what's all coming together in the Virgo and Libran areas of your chart? But then if we want to, we could also look at the Aries part of your chart and test what's new. What's coming, what's new, what's the new potential. And of course, the new moon is in the middle of the Venus and Mars connection, right? So that's interesting to find them at this halfway point sort of thing. And the new moon being when we can balance and harmonize the masculine and the feminine, right? Both on the world stage, but also in your personal life.
Also at home. Hey, I am watching the clock. We've got about 7-ish minutes left and another 10 days to cover.
We got this, girl. We got this. So, okay, let's move on. And again, if you want more about the new moon solar eclipse, go to my website later today. You'll be able to download the video, the slides, and how you deal with that through journaling, reflection, and ritual. So let's take this away and put our calendar back up.
We're looking at my birthday, the 22nd.
We're looking at, first, let's do also on the 21st, besides the new moon eclipse, is also a new human design week. And I forgot to bring that part up because this is the crux. When we get to these two gates on every season, there's a different configuration. And this, or the equinoxes, not the solstices, but the equinoxes, this is where we find love energy, because it's the love of the physical body, being in the physical world, and the love of spirit, where they come together, right? Body and spirit. And I love this time of year because it is the asking of us to balance and harmonize those two parts of ourselves, the very human and the divine human coming together as one in the body, right? For universal love, for balance, for embodiment. It is a great human design week to start, and that is always our harbinger of the seasonal change. And then we get right into the 22nd, the autumn equinox. Woo. I did not pull up a chart for that yet.
Well, that could be a whole other show.
It could be a whole other show, because then drawing up a chart for a season tells us some of the interesting things that might happen. What's the mood of the people? What are our leaders up to? Depends on, where you set the chart for. So happy birthday to Tam on the 22nd.
Yay.
And Mars moves into Scorpio that day. So where Mars has been debilitated or in detriment, right? He's been disempowered a bit, or his usual aggressive energy in Libra has been, dampened down. Now he busts into Scorpio. He breathes a fresh bit of air, sighs of relief, because Scorpio is a sign he rules, right? So now we have an empowered Mars moving into this week. And here's where I see perhaps some danger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some danger coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Danger maybe of conflict, or I don't like setting this up, but it's a critical week in terms of the energy, because we've empowered Mars, right? He is empowered and moving forward. The next day, the sun is in opposition to Neptune. So now we're having this tension of, trying to maintain peace, right? Because now the sun is in Libra, right? So how do we balance peace? How do we envision peace? How do we build that and equality and tolerance and acceptance and all those yummy things? How do we find justice?
Is it peace against power? It seems so divinely timed. We just had this massive eclipse, which is due to shake things up. Here comes Mars in Scorpio, like a power player there, to hey, I don't like what just happened at that eclipse. It's like that battle is, I don't know, just fascinating how the story that is written. You can't write a movie like this.
No, and especially because we don't know exactly how this will play out in the outer world. I mean, it looks dangerous to me, especially because the following day, the 24th, the sun is trine Pluto and Mars is square Pluto. So anytime that week, right, that transit is actually, that aspect is building, right, toward this. As soon as Mars moves into Scorpio, he's now ready to go, right? He's full on passion and intensity, and capable of wreaking havoc. And then he moves into the square with Pluto. I don't know. Maybe Pluto dampens him down a bit and says, okay, hey, you've done enough. Let's try to build a future for humanity now, because that's Pluto's job in Aquarius. So maybe it's a turning point like that. Or maybe it's very much in our face, where we're not really honoring humanity and factoring humanity into the decisions that are being made. Maybe we get the people in an uproar over something, and that is a movement of sorts or a demonstration of sorts. So kind of interesting. The thing that makes it a little more worrisome is Saturn the very next day is now moving into the gate 36, which was earlier in the human design month. We saw let's see, what was it? It was on the week of the 15th through the 20th. We saw Earth at the 36. So Earth set the template in play, and now Saturn moving back into the 36 because he's retrograde, taking up that crisis point and maybe moving us to a solution. I don't know, but also maybe bringing it more in our faces that something is rotten in Denmark and we need to fix it. We shall see, right? We shall see. And then the end of the week, the 27th, we end up in a new human design week. And here is a whole new story that begins. A new storyline begins for us, because for the next 7 weeks, the sun is moving through the gates of the spleen center in human design, which are the gates that can double as fear, as kind of these points where we get stuck, fear, shadow energies, paralyzed, energies.
Huh.
The good news, it's 7 weeks of us looking at all of the things that have held us back, that have stopped us from moving forward. And on a grander scale, there's a lot, right, that,
Yeah.
we get caught up in. And the fear is usually of the other, right? The fear of other, right? What's that? If I give this, I'm going to lose. So win lose kinds of issues. Um, yeah, that'll be something I take up in my weekly uh,
Podcast.
broadcasts, because those 7 weeks, take us all the way through November,
Yeah.
and are very powerful weeks for healing, for thriving, for survival, right? And I think of survival as, a lesser than thriving, but also taking us through fear and shadow energies. And that ends our month, right? We're ending the month with the sun at the gate 18, which is a gate called perfection or judgment, where, critical thinking is important and analyzing is important, but we can get into analysis paralysis, and that's what we need to look at. Are we constantly stuck in analyzing and trying to perfect, and we never launch, right? We never make the big change. So that's what we'll be dealing with as we end the month.
Wow. And we have a question for you in the chat. I'm going to read this to you. And this is from
Okay.
TD Hawk asks, I have some touchy subjects to attend to with a couple of aggressive, touchy people. Me coming in with love and firmness, their history has not been such. Should I push this into October or approach it the second week of September? And yes, it's perfectly okay that you asked that question, TD.
Yes, it is. Although I don't have your chart in front of me, Tamara. So, knowing, I can't even recall that chart in my head at this moment. But what I would say is that no matter what it is you do, and no matter when you do it, you're going to have to approach it with equanimity. You're going to have to approach it with love in your heart. And if the other person does not give that back, you're the messenger, right? It's their job to mind how they receive it. I would say that if you can hold off till the new moon, that might be better, right? Because
The
unless,
October new moon or the September eclipse
no,
moon?
the September eclipse moon, I mean, any of so the full moon lunar eclipse on the 7th brings something to a close.
Right.
Like maybe you can't tolerate something anymore, so you have to contend with it. And in that liminal space between the two eclipses, it can feel a little bit like, you know, pulling teeth, or it's difficult, or, they didn't accept what you had to say very well. So then if you waited until the new moon solar eclipse, then you have the new moon power energy behind you. But no matter what timing you use this month, you're going to run into something. You're just going to run into something. It's going to call all of your skills of diplomacy, of peace, of love, of tact to the surface, no matter when you do it, right? Yeah,
Jesus, thank you. Yeah. Yep.
yeah. So the approach is uh, important. And remember, in your human design, do you have a defined throat? Because if you do, or even if you don't, the throat center energy is about the invitation. So if you have to have a conversation with mom, let's say, Mom, you and I need to have a conversation. Is this a good time?
Mm.
And if she's constantly putting you off, you're going to have to say, we need to have a conversation. Would you prefer Saturday or Sunday?
Mm.
Right? There you go. Well, that is it for September.
That was a mouthful.
It was. Um, I
That's
mean,
fun.
and because it's complex, it's hard to just do a one-off reading thing like that. It's for every one of you, this month is complex. That's all I can say, right? If I look at your chart, I can see more about where things are going. And if you need that, I stand ready for that. In the meantime, Tam, thank you so much for being here with me today. I love these conversations that we get to have. Don't forget I see her with her energy almanac. What do you have to tell us?
I just want to remind everybody September 1 through 11. The link will be theenergyalmanac.com, but there are secret codes to get free shipping or to buy a bundle where you're going to get our annual overview for 2026. that has like my God, that bundle has $160 value, I think, for I think we're selling it for 75. $90. Well, anyway, there's all these cool deals and codes, and Janet will ship it out. I'll ship it out to people who are on my list. But this is a beautiful book. We added 6 pages. It's 186 pages. So proud of it. So excited. It's so cute too. Look, this is the bigger one. Let's see. This one over here. The taller person is Janet. And that's us buddying up and bringing our wisdom into this information and sharing it with everybody. And
yep. So the pre-sale, September 1 to 11. Watch for emails from either Tam or I, or both of us. Watch social media for your opportunity to buy the coil-bound book. That's the biggie, right? That's the big kahuna. You'll want the coil-bound so that you can actually use it as an almanac and write in it and do all the good stuff that you are used to doing. So that's it for me, and that's it for Tam. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next month on the, oh my Lord, 24th, it looks like.
24th of September.
Yeah.
So hold on, everybody. Have a really good and safe and spectacular September.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye for now.